The old engines of HS Guardian hummed quietly in the emptiness of space. Captain James Walker sat in his worn command chair, running his fingers over the scratched armrest. The ship's outdated systems blinked around him with their usual tired rhythm. He looked at the main screen, watching the endless stars drift by as they patrolled their assigned sector. The quietest, most boring piece of space humanity had ever mapped. "Captain, weekly system check complete," Mike Stone called from his engineering station. The old engineer's voice carried the same tired tone it always did. "3 more subsystems have dropped below standard efficiency. We're now operating at 62% of recommended levels." James nodded, not surprised by the news. The Guardian was old, a relic from humanity's early days of space exploration. While other ships in the fleet boasted quantum computers and AI-assisted everything, the Guardian still ran on basic digital systems. Most of its controls were manual, and half its screens still used LCD technology that went out of fashion 50 years ago. "File another upgrade request," James ordered, knowing it would join the 100 others that had been denied. "Mark it as urgent if you want. They'll ignore it all the same." Around the bridge, his small crew of 15 worked quietly at their stations. They were the misfits of the fleet, the ones too stubborn to retire, too set in their ways to learn the new systems, or simply too attached to the old ways of space travel. The Guardian had become their home, even if the rest of the fleet saw them as a joke. Lisa Reed, their science officer, suddenly sat up straighter at her station. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on our long-range sensors." She adjusted some dials. Actual physical dials, not the holographic interfaces used on modern ships. I've never seen readings like this before." James walked over to her station, looking at the flickering screen. The signal was weird, unlike anything in their database. "Can you clean up the signal?" "Not with our equipment," Lisa admitted. "But whatever it is, it's big. And it's not moving." The captain looked at his crew. Protocol said they should call it in and wait for a better-equipped ship to investigate. That was their job now, to find things and let the real ships handle them. But something in his gut told him this was different. "Plot a course," he ordered. "Let's take a closer look." The Guardian's old engines pushed them through space, taking 3 times longer to reach their destination than a modern ship would have needed. When they finally got close enough for visual contact, the bridge fell silent. Floating in the darkness was a ship, but not like anything they'd ever seen. It was huge, easily 4 times the size of the Guardian, with a design that seemed to ignore everything humans knew about space engineering. Its hull was covered in patterns that seemed to shift and move, even though they knew that should be impossible. "No energy readings," Lisa reported, frowning at her screen. "It's completely dead. Life signs. None that our sensors can detect." "But Captain," she hesitated, "our sensors are pretty basic. A modern ship would be able to tell us a lot more." James stood up, making his decision. "Prepare for boarding. We're going to take a look." "Sir," his first officer, Tom Bridge, stepped forward. "Regulations clearly state that in case of unknown alien contact, we should wait for a properly equipped research vessel. Regulations also state that ships should be retired after 30 years of service." James replied with a small smile. "We passed that mark 12 years ago. This might be our only chance to prove we're more than just a flying museum. Suit up." They used the old airlocks because the Guardian's modern docking systems had failed years ago. James led a team of 4, including Lisa and Mike, their magnetic boots clicking against the alien hull as they walked. The ship's surface felt wrong under their feet, almost like it was responding to their presence. They found an entrance, or at least something that looked like it could be an entrance. The alien metal parted easily, too easily, as if it had been waiting for them. Inside, their flashlights revealed corridors that seemed to be made of flowing metal and crystal, nothing like the practical designs used by humans or any known alien race. "This technology," Mike whispered, his handheld scanner beeping frantically. "It's not just advanced. It's impossible. These readings, They don't make any sense. They made their way deeper into the ship, their old equipment struggling to make sense of what they were seeing. Lisa stopped at what looked like a control room, her eyes wide behind her helmet visor. "Captain, look at this." In the center of the room stood a crystal, about the size of a basketball, floating in midair. It pulsed with a soft light that seemed to respond to their presence, changing colors as they moved around it. "Don't touch anything," James ordered, but he could feel something was about to happen. The crystal's light grew stronger, and their suits' simple radios began picking up a signal they couldn't understand. Mike stepped closer to the crystal, his scanner going crazy. "Captain, these energy readings, they're off the charts. But it's not like any power source we've ever seen. It's almost like it's alive." Before James could respond, the crystal flashed brightly. Their suits' systems flickered, and for a moment, James thought they were about to die. But instead of killing them, the crystal seemed to be communicating. Their old radio equipment, too simple to be affected by advanced interference, picked up patterns in the energy pulses. "It's scanning us," Lisa realized, watching her instruments. "No, not us. It's scanning our equipment. Our ship." The crystal's light suddenly focused into a beam, pointing directly at the Guardian through the alien ship's hull. James's radio crackled with urgent messages from the crew left aboard. "Captain." Tom's voice was filled with panic. "Something's happening to the Guardian. Systems are activating, changing. Sir, you need to get back here now." James looked at the crystal, then at his team. They had just found something incredible, something that could change everything. But right now, his ship needed him. "Back to the Guardian," he ordered. "Move." As they rushed back through the alien corridors, none of them noticed that the crystal's light was following them, seeping into their suits' simple systems, into their basic equipment. The very technology that the rest of the fleet had mocked, the outdated systems that had made them a joke, were about to become the foundation of something unprecedented. The Guardian was about to wake up, and the galaxy would never be the same. The team raced back through the Guardian's airlock, their magnetic boots clanking against the metal floor. Alarms blared throughout the old ship, but they sounded different now, deeper, almost musical. James threw off his helmet and rushed to the bridge, his heart pounding in his chest. "Status report," he shouted, but stopped dead in his tracks when he saw the bridge. The old screens were alive with strange patterns, showing information in ways their simple displays shouldn't have been capable of. The ship's lights pulsed with a familiar crystal-like glow. "Everything's changing," Tom said, his hands hovering over his console uncertainly. "But nothing's breaking. It's like the ship is upgrading itself." Mike rushed to his engineering station, his eyes wide as he watched the readings. "This is impossible. The old fusion reactor, it's not just running better. It's doing things that break the laws of physics. Power levels are off the charts, but the containment systems are holding perfectly." "How?" James asked, watching as lines of light began to trace their way across the bridge's walls. "Our containment systems are 30 years old. They shouldn't be able to handle this kind of power." Lisa was already at her science station, her fingers flying over the old keyboard. "That's just it, Captain. The old systems aren't fighting the changes. They're accepting them. It's like..." She paused, searching for the right words. "It's like our outdated technology is the perfect foundation for whatever that crystal is doing." The ship shuddered, but not violently. It felt more like a cat stretching after a long nap. The main viewing screen, which had been showing simple digital images just hours ago, now displayed a three-dimensional view of space that seemed to float in the air. "Sir," called out Ben, their navigation officer, "the helm is responding differently. The controls, they're the same physical levers and buttons, but they're connected to something new now. Something better." James walked to his captain's chair, noticing how the worn leather seemed to shimmer slightly under his touch. "Mike, full system check. I want to know exactly what's happening to my ship." Mike worked at his station, his expression changing from confusion to amazement. "Captain, the crystal. It's not replacing our systems. It's evolving them. The old manual controls, the basic computers, even the mechanical backup systems, they're all still there, but they're becoming something more. Something impossible." As if to prove his point, the lights flickered, and suddenly holographic displays appeared above every station. But they weren't like the clean, sterile holograms used on modern ships. These seemed to grow from the old screens like digital vines, using the ancient displays as their foundation. "Look at this," Lisa called out excitedly. "Our old sensors, they're not just detecting things now. They're somehow reaching through space itself. I can see energy patterns, quantum fluctuations, things we shouldn't be able to detect with any known technology." The crew worked through the night, trying to understand what their ship was becoming. The Guardian's transformation continued, but it never felt threatening. The old systems they knew so well were still there, just enhanced in ways that should have been impossible. Mike discovered that the engineering section had changed the most. The old fusion reactor now pulsed with crystalline energy, its simple magnetic containment field having evolved into something that seemed to bend space itself. The basic maintenance robots they used for repairs had developed the ability to reshape metal with a touch, fixing problems before they even fully developed. "It's like the crystal saw our old technology and thought it was perfect," Mike explained to James as they toured the changes. "Modern ships, they're all quantum this and AI that. But our simple systems, they're like empty cups waiting to be filled. The crystal's using them as a foundation to create something entirely new." Later, in the ship's small mess hall, James watched his crew as they shared their discoveries. The fear from earlier had been replaced by excitement. Even Tom, who had always been the most by the book, couldn't hide his amazement at what was happening. "The really interesting part," Lisa said, looking up from her tablet, "is how the transformation is affecting different parts of the ship. The newer components, the few upgrades we did get, they're barely changing at all. But the old stuff, the really old stuff, that's where the magic is happening." James was about to respond when the ship's new alert system chimed, a sound like crystal bells that somehow felt both ancient and futuristic. "Captain," the Guardian's old computer spoke, its once robotic voice now carrying strange harmonics. "Unknown vessels approaching." They rushed back to the bridge, watching as 3 sleek patrol ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel nearby. Modern human vessels, probably responding to the strange energy readings from the Guardian's transformation. "Hess Guardian, this is Patrol Leader Williams," a stern voice came through the comm. "Our sensors are detecting unauthorized modifications and dangerous power fluctuations from your vessel. Power down immediately and prepare for boarding." James looked at his crew, then at his transformed ship. The patrol ships were the newest in the fleet, armed with quantum torpedoes and AI targeting systems. By all normal logic, the Guardian shouldn't stand a chance against them. But nothing about their situation was normal anymore. "This is Captain Walker," he responded calmly. "With all due respect, Patrol Leader, I don't think powering down is an option anymore. Something is happening here, something important. We need time to understand it. That wasn't a request, Guardian. Power down now, or we will be forced to take action." The patrol ships moved into attack formation, their weapons charging. James felt his ship respond, not with fear, but with something almost like amusement. The old systems they'd nursed along for years had become something new, something that hummed with power and possibility. "All hands," James called out, settling into his familiar old chair as new displays bloomed around him like exotic flowers. "Prepare to show them what an old ship with some new tricks can do." The Guardian's ancient heart began to beat with crystal fire, and the true test of its transformation was about to begin. The 3 patrol ships loomed before them, their modern weapons glowing with deadly energy. Inside the Guardian, James gripped his old command chair as new displays shimmered around him like curtains of light. The ship's transformed systems hummed with power, waiting. Last warning, Guardian. Patrol Leader Williams's voice crackled through the speakers. Power down in 10 seconds, or we will open fire. Sir, Tom called from his station. Their targeting systems are locked on our engines and weapons. He paused, looking at his new displays with surprise. But the Guardian is suggesting evasive moves I've never seen before. These patterns, they're impossible. James nodded. Ben, follow the ship's suggestions. Mike, what are our options? Mike's hands danced over his engineering console, now a blend of old switches and flowing crystal interfaces. Captain, you're not going to believe this. The Guardian isn't just giving us new ways to move. It's showing us how to shift. The patrol ship's countdown reached 0. 3 quantum torpedoes streaked through space toward the Guardian, their advanced guidance systems ensuring a perfect hit, or they should have. At the last second, the Guardian moved. But it wasn't like any movement they'd seen before. The old ship didn't just dodge. It seemed to slide between spaces, like water flowing through cracks. The torpedoes passed through empty space, their targeting systems confused. How did we do that? James demanded, his heart racing. The crystals changes, Lisa explained, excitement in her voice. Our old maneuvering thrusters were so simple, so basic, that when the crystal enhanced them, it could rewrite the rules. We're not just moving through space, we're flowing with it. The patrol ships regrouped, launching another attack. This time, their AI systems adjusted, predicting where the Guardian would dodge. But the old ship had more surprises. As the weapons approached, the Guardian's hull, still the same metal they'd patched and repaired for years, began to ripple like water, letting the energy weapons pass harmlessly through. Impossible, Williams's voice shouted over the comm. Guardian, you're using unauthorized alien technology. Stand down immediately. James watched as his crew worked with their transformed ship, old muscle memory combining with new impossible abilities. This isn't just alien tech, he replied calmly. This is evolution. The Guardian isn't just changing. It's becoming what it was always meant to be. The patrol ships switched tactics, moving to surround the Guardian. Their modern sensors tried to analyze the old ship, but the crystal's influence confused them. Where their quantum scanners expected to find outdated systems, they instead found spaces that seemed to fold in on themselves. Sir, Ben called out. They're charging their main guns. These are planet crackers. We can't take that kind of hit, no matter what we've become. But the Guardian had other ideas. As the patrol ships fired, the old ship's reaction was beyond anything they could have imagined. The space around them seemed to bend, and suddenly they were behind their attackers, the deadly energy beams hitting nothing but empty space. How? James started to ask, but Mike cut him off. Our old physical sensors, the engineer exclaimed. They were so simple that the crystal could completely reinvent how they work. We're not just detecting space, we're reading it like a book, seeing all the shortcuts and hidden paths that have always been there. The patrol ships tried to adjust, but they were fighting with pure power against something that had transcended normal space combat. The Guardian danced around them, using movements that should have been impossible, its old hull flowing like liquid metal when needed, then becoming harder than any known material the next moment. Captain, Lisa called out suddenly. We're getting a priority transmission. It's from Fleet Command. The main screen shifted, showing the stern face of Admiral Turner. His eyes widened slightly as he saw the transformed bridge of the Guardian. Captain Walker, what have you done to your ship? Admiral, James replied respectfully, we've discovered something extraordinary. The Guardian has been transformed, but not just into a weapon. This is a whole new way of understanding space itself. It's a threat is what it is. The Admiral snapped. That ship was due for decommissioning 3 years ago. Instead, you've turned it into some kind of abomination. All ships in the sector are being redirected to your location. Surrender now, or be destroyed. James looked at his crew, seeing the determination in their eyes. They had all served on the Guardian when no one else wanted her, keeping her running when others would have scraped her for parts. Now she had given them something miraculous in return. "I'm sorry, Admiral," James said firmly, "but we can't do that. The Guardian isn't just our ship anymore. She's showing us possibilities that could change everything. We need time to understand what's happening." "Then you leave us no choice," the Admiral replied coldly. "You're now classified as a rogue vessel. All ships are authorized to use lethal force. Whatever your ship has become, Walker, it can't stand against the entire fleet." The transmission cut off, and James could already see more ships appearing on their long-range sensors. But instead of fear, he felt a strange calm. The Guardian's systems pulsed around them, showing paths and possibilities that no modern ship could see. "Your orders, Captain," Tom asked quietly. James stood up, watching the crystalline displays dance around him. Their old, obsolete ship had become something unique in the galaxy, not because of overwhelming power, but because its very simplicity had allowed it to evolve beyond normal limits. "We run," he said firmly, "not in fear, but because we need time. Time to understand what the Guardian has become, and what it means for humanity's future." He smiled slightly. "Besides, they'll have to catch us first." The Guardian's transformed engines hummed to life, and space itself seemed to part before them. As they prepared to escape, James realized that their greatest weakness, being an outdated, unwanted ship, had become their greatest strength. The modern fleet would hunt them, but they had become something entirely new, a legend in the making, born from the marriage of the simplest human technology and the most advanced alien gift. Their adventure was just beginning. 2 weeks had passed since their escape from the patrol ships. The Guardian drifted quietly in the shadow of a gas giant, its crystalline systems pulsing softly in the darkness. Inside, the crew watched in amazement as their ship continued to evolve in ways none of them had expected. Mike stood in the engine room, watching the old fusion reactor as it spun impossibly in multiple dimensions at once. "It's like she's learning," he told James, who had come down for his daily inspection. "Remember how we used to bang on the power couplings to get them working? Now they repair themselves, but not just back to normal. They get better every time." The captain reached out to touch a nearby wall, feeling the metal shift slightly under his fingers. The entire ship had become alive in a way, responding to its crew's needs, often before they even realized what they needed. "Any idea what she'll do next?" Before Mike could answer, Lisa's voice came through the ship's communications. "Captain, bridge, now. You need to see this." They rushed to the bridge, finding the rest of the crew already gathered around Lisa's science station. The old sensor displays now showed complex patterns of energy that seemed to flow through space itself. "I was scanning for pursuit ships," Lisa explained, "when I noticed this. The Guardian isn't just detecting energy anymore. She's seeing the actual structure of space-time. Look at these patterns. They're like highways between the stars that nobody knew existed." Tom leaned closer to the display. "Are you saying we can travel through these?" "We already are," Ben called from the helm. "Haven't you noticed our jumps getting smoother? The ship's been following these paths, learning them. Traditional engines blast through space. We're swinging through it." James was about to respond when alarms chimed. The new, musical ones that had replaced their old klaxons. 5 ships had just appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel less than 1,000,000 kilometers away. But these weren't human vessels. "Bright mind ships," Lisa reported, referring to one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. "Their technology is centuries ahead of Earth's. They must have heard about us from the human fleet." The alien vessels approached cautiously, their sleek forms glowing with energy that even their advanced systems couldn't fully contain. A transmission came through, the alien language automatically translated by the Guardian's enhanced communications. "Anomalous vessel," a calm voice stated. "You represent an unauthorized merger of technologies. Your existence threatens the natural order of technological progression. Prepare to be analyzed and deconstructed." James straightened in his chair. "This is Captain James Walker of the HS Guardian. We mean no harm. We're simply trying to understand what our ship has become." "Understanding is irrelevant," the Bright Mind ship responded. "Lesser species must not gain advanced technology without proper evolutionary steps. Your vessel will be dismantled. Your crew will be preserved for study." The alien ships moved with incredible grace, forming a perfect pentagon around the Guardian. Energy fields sprang up between them, creating a cage that would have trapped any normal vessel. But the Guardian was far from normal now. "Sir," Ben called from his station, his hands hovering over the old manual controls that now connected to systems beyond human understanding. "The ship is suggesting something wild. These energy fields they're using, we can turn them inside out." James nodded. "Do it." The Guardian's crystalline systems pulsed once, and suddenly the energy cage collapsed in on itself. The Bright Mind ships scattered, their perfect formation broken. But they recovered quickly, launching weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. "They're using quantum phase disruptors," Lisa reported excitedly. "But look, our old shield generators, they're adapting. The simpler the original system, the better it works with the crystal's changes." She was right. The Guardian's shields, once barely able to stop normal weapons, now twisted the advanced energy attacks into harmless light. The ship's hull rippled and flowed, its old metal plates becoming something that existed in multiple states at once. "Multiple ships approaching," Tom announced. "Looks like our friends called for backup." More Bright Mind ships appeared, their weapons charging. But the Guardian had another surprise ready. The crystal's influence had spread through every system, and now the old emergency protocols they'd never bothered to update had become something extraordinary. "Mike," James called to engineering, "remember that old backup system we used to joke about? The one that was so basic it just vented everything and hoped for the best." The engineer laughed. "Already on it, Captain. You're not going to believe what it does now." The Guardian's transformed systems activated. Instead of simply venting plasma, the ship created a field of pure possibility around itself. Space itself seemed to hiccup, and suddenly there were 5 Guardians, each one as real as the original, each one moving in ways that should have been impossible. The Bright Mind ships hesitated, their advanced sensors unable to determine which Guardian was real, because, in a way, they all were. The old backup system, designed to simply release energy in an emergency, had evolved into something that could split reality itself. "This is impossible," the Bright Mind commander transmitted, actual emotion creeping into their voice. "Your technology is too primitive to achieve these effects." "That's exactly why it works," James replied calmly. "Your ships are too advanced, too set in their ways. Ours was simple enough to become something new." The Guardian's copies moved in perfect synchronization, each one adding to the impossible patterns they were weaving through space. The Bright Mind ships fired again and again, but they couldn't hit what they couldn't understand. "Sir," Lisa called out, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups in their ships. They're going to try to collapse this entire sector of space." But even as she spoke, the Guardian was changing again. The crystal's power flowed through the old systems, finding new possibilities in their simple designs. The ship that had once been the weakest in the human fleet now danced through dimensions, its primitive technology becoming the foundation for something beyond even the Bright Mind's understanding. "They're retreating," Tom announced as the alien ships began to pull back. "But they're sending transmissions across the galaxy. Everyone's going to be looking for us now." James looked around his bridge, at the crew that had stayed with this old ship when everyone else had abandoned her. The Guardian hummed around them, its transformed systems showing them wonders that no human had ever seen before. "Let them come," he said quietly. "We're not running anymore. The Guardian has more to show us, and maybe it's time the galaxy learned that sometimes the oldest, simplest things can become the most extraordinary." The ship pulsed in agreement, its crystal heart beating in time with their own. They had started this journey as outcasts on an obsolete vessel, but they had become something else. Pioneers on the edge of a new kind of space travel, where the very limitations of their old ship had become the key to unlimited possibility. The hunt for the Guardian would continue, but now they were ready. The galaxy's strongest nightmare had once been its weakest ship, and its evolution was far from over. A month had passed since their encounter with the bright mind ships. The Guardian floated in an empty region of space, its crystalline systems glowing brighter than ever. The crew had learned to trust their transformed ship, watching in wonder as each old system evolved in new ways. Mike walked onto the bridge, his eyes bright with excitement. "Captain, you need to see this. The crystal's influence. It's reached the maintenance crawlways. You know, the ones so old they still needed manual checking." Before James could respond, the ship's new sensors flared to life. Space seemed to tear open around them, as the largest fleet they'd ever seen emerged from faster-than-light travel. Bright mind ships led the formation, followed by vessels from a dozen other advanced species. 342 ships, Lisa reported calmly. The bright minds brought friends. Every major spacefaring race is represented in that fleet. A transmission cut through their communications, broadcasting on all frequencies. The Bright Mind Supreme Commander's image appeared on their main screen. "Anomalous Vessel Guardian. Your continued existence threatens the established order of the galaxy. Surrender now, or face complete destruction." James looked at his crew, seeing determination in their eyes. The Guardian had changed them all, showing them wonders that no human had ever seen. "Open a channel to the fleet." "You're on, sir," Tom confirmed. "This is Captain Walker. Before you attack, ask yourselves this. Why are you really here? Is it because we're a threat, or because we've shown you that everything you thought you knew about technology might be wrong?" The Bright Mind Commander's expression didn't change. "Your primitive vessel has been corrupted by forces you cannot understand. The natural order must be maintained. All ships, commence firing." Energy weapons of every kind streaked toward the Guardian. Weapons that could shatter planets, beams that could tear apart space itself, torpedoes that existed in multiple dimensions. The combined firepower of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, all focused on one target. But the Guardian had been waiting for this moment. Deep in its systems, the crystal's influence had spread through every ancient circuit, every outdated component. The old ship that everyone had laughed at had become something entirely new. "Now," James ordered quietly, "show them what we've learned." The Guardian moved. But this wasn't like its previous evasions. The old emergency thrusters, once barely able to dodge asteroids, now let the ship slide between the spaces that existed between spaces. Weapons fire passed through empty air as the Guardian seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. "Sir," Lisa called out, her hands flying over her console. "The crystal. It's not just changing the ship anymore. It's trying to tell us something." Ancient symbols appeared on their screens, finally becoming clear after weeks of evolution. The crystal's message was simple but profound. It was a test, created by a long-vanished race. A test not of power or advanced technology, but of potential. They weren't looking for the most advanced ship, James realized. They were looking for one simple enough to change completely. The Guardian's systems pulsed with new energy as understanding flowed through ship and crew alike. Every primitive system they had nursed along for years became a gateway to possibilities that the advanced fleet couldn't comprehend. The old radar array, which could barely detect meteors, now reached through dimensions to predict enemy movements before they happened. The backup life support, which they had joked was little better than a fan, now generated fields that could reshape reality itself. "Multiple hits incoming," Tom warned as the fleet adjusted their tactics, trying to predict where the Guardian would appear. But Mike just smiled at his engineering station. "No, they're about to hit themselves." The Guardian's transformed systems activated. Space folded around them in ways that the advanced targeting computers couldn't understand. Energy beams meant for the Guardian twisted back on themselves, caught in knots of probability that only their old, simple sensors could navigate. "Message from the crystal," Lisa announced, wonder in her voice. "It's not just testing us. It's teaching us. Every primitive system we kept, every outdated component we refused to replace, they're all becoming something new, something that was always possible if we just looked at technology differently." The Bright Mind fleet's perfect formation began to break apart as their weapons either missed completely or turned back on themselves. Their advanced shields, designed to stop any known weapon, couldn't handle attacks that came from directions that shouldn't exist. They're launching their final weapon, then called from navigation. Some kind of reality bomb. It'll destroy everything in this sector. But James felt no fear. The Guardian's crystal heart pulsed with pure possibility, and every ancient system they had kept working through stubbornness and skill became a key to unlocking new miracles. As the reality bomb approached, the Guardian did something impossible. Instead of dodging or defending, it reached out with systems that had once been too primitive to matter. The old waste recycling system, which they had never bothered to upgrade, now recycled reality itself. The manual steering controls, which other ships had replaced with AI, let them guide the very fabric of space. The reality bomb didn't just fail, it transformed. The Guardian's simple systems, enhanced by the crystal's power, turned the weapon into pure creative energy. Light bloomed across space as the Guardian showed the combined fleet what true evolution looked like. "Signal from the Bright Mind Commander," Tom reported, surprise in his voice. "They're standing down." The Supreme Commander's image appeared again on their screen, but this time there was something new in their expression. "We were wrong," they admitted. "The test was never about power or advancement. It was about potential. About being simple enough to become something completely new." One by one, the fleet's weapons powered down. The Guardian hovered among them, its crystalline systems pulsing with gentle light. The very qualities that had made it obsolete. Its simple systems, its basic technology, its need for human guidance, had made it perfect for transformation. The crystal wasn't a weapon, James said to both his crew and the watching fleet. It was a gift, a chance to show that sometimes the oldest, simplest things have the most potential for change. The Bright Mind Commander nodded slowly. "Your ship will be remembered, Guardian. Not as a nightmare, but as a reminder that true evolution comes not from complexity, but from the ability to change." As the fleet began to disperse, James looked around his bridge. The worn chairs, the old displays, the manual controls. Everything that had made them a joke had become the foundation of something miraculous. The Guardian hummed around them, its transformed systems now a perfect blend of simple human engineering and impossible alien power. "Where to now, Captain?" Ben asked from his station. James smiled, feeling the ship's crystal heart beat in time with their own. "Everywhere. The Guardian still has more to show us, and now we have all the time in the universe to learn." The ship that had once been the weakest in the fleet turned gracefully, its old systems now gateways to miracle after miracle. They had started this journey as outcasts on an obsolete vessel, but they had become pioneers of a new age, one where the simplest things could become the most extraordinary. The Guardian's light flared once, bright and beautiful, and then they were gone, sliding between the spaces where space itself lived, ready for whatever wonders waited to be discovered next.